This video is brought to you by my two books, Practical Music Theory for the Rock Guitarist and The Blues Guitar Bible. Want to learn about modes, harmony, scales, chord substitution and keys? Or maybe you're interested in supercharging your blues guitar rhythm and lead chops. Whatever you're interested in, I guarantee you will be hitting the fast lane to progress with either of these works. Both feature video demonstrations and tutorials, loads of tabs and jam tracks to play along with, and I promise you, everything is explained in crystal clear plain English. Check out the links in the description for more details. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. A little bit of a nostalgic video today, at least it is for me. And I know that many of the people who watch this channel are of a similar vintage to me, so hopefully you can come along for the ride. It all stems from a conversation I was having with a friend the other day about, kind of how different genres of music change over time. For example, if I was to ask you to name some heavy metal bands these days, you'd probably come up with names like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Metallica, Megadeth, maybe Motorhead, those kind of bands. The broadest sense of heavy metal. Is heavy metal even a term that's used these days? You don't hear people using it much. Now it's just kind of metal with other prefixes like, death metal, thrash metal, etc., etc. I'm not really up on all that sort of thing. But, heavy metal is what I learned to call it back in my younger days. And as I say, those bands like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Metallica, those are the kind of acts that you tend to think of as being in that genre. But it used to be a lot broader than that. Back in the 80s, when I was a poor, starving student, one of the cheapest ways, apart from just getting people to record albums onto a cassette for you, one of the cheapest ways of getting music was from those cheap and cheerful compilation albums, Ronco this or K-Tel that, or does anyone remember the Music for Pleasure record label? You usually found them in discount bins in supermarkets. And there's one album that I recall very fondly from my student days, 87-ish, I'm going to say. And I wish I've searched all this morning to try and find a cover image of it, but it's not there. So I've kind of mocked it up myself. It looks a lot like this. I definitely remember it having a Gibson SG down the left-hand side, that sort of stencil kind of font, and that sort of sandy coloured, kind of colour to it. I couldn't think of another word for it then. But if you can see there, you look at the track listing, this is, to the best of my memory, the actual track listing from this album. I listened to it pretty continuously, put it onto cassette, used to have it on my Walkman as I was going out for long walks around the Lake District Fells as I was trying to avoid the landlady because I didn't have the rent that week. But, this was not unusual in the 1980s to have, and I'll read you the track listing now. As I say, this is as best as I can remember, and if even only half of these are right, it's a bit of an eye-opener. All Right Now by Free, Smoke on the Water by Deep Purple, Dead Ringer for Love by Meatloaf, Stairway to Heaven by the Far Corporation. Do you remember that awful cover version? There's another one of those on the list later, another Led Zeppelin cover. Rocky Mountain Way by Joe Walsh, American Woman by the Guess Who, School's Out by Alice Cooper, The Boys Are Back in Town by Thin Lizzy, and You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet by Bachman Turner Overdrive. We continue with I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, Born to be Wild by Steppenwolf, Whole Lot of Love by CCS. Yes. Those of us of a certain vintage in the UK will remember the cover version of Whole Lot of Love by CCS, Collective Conscious Society or something, Alexis Corner's band at the time. It was used as a theme tune for Top of the Pops for many years. My Sharona by The Knack, Cocaine by Eric Clapton, You Really Got Me by The Kinks, This Flight Tonight by Nazareth, Carry On Wayward Son by Kansas, Radar Love by Golden Earring, Caroline by Status Quo, and topping things off was Babe by Styx. These are the tracks that appeared on a compilation album in 1987 that, to the best of my memory, looked a lot like that and had those tracks on it. Those were the kind of tracks that you were not shouted at for referring to as heavy metal. Can you imagine these days, if you described Dead Ringer for Love by Meatloaf as heavy metal, or, what's another one? You Really Got Me by the Kinks. I can kind of see, Born to Be Wild by Steppenwolf, because that is, well, depending who you believe, that is the origin of the term heavy metal from, I Like Smoking Lightning, Heavy Metal Thunder, one of the lines of lyrics in that song. But it wasn't unusual to kind of think of any of these bands, really, back in the 80s as being a metal band. Bon Jovi were referred to as a heavy metal band, I seem to recall, by more than one DJ or journalist or whoever was kind of talking or writing about such genres of music. It seemed back then that the prerequisite for being called heavy metal was you had to have long hair and distorted guitars on the song. But even the Knack, My Sharona, they were all kind of short-haired, clean-cut boys, weren't they? But, it's that sort of pounding beat and a distorted guitar. Right, okay, we're going to call that heavy metal. And obviously these days we can look back on that now and think how quaint it all was, how kind of naive it would be to call, Caroline by Status Quo a heavy metal tune, but it got referred to in that way back then. I know, I was there, I remember it. And it obviously changed at some point. Can anybody circle a date on a calendar when suddenly the term classic rock became the designation? Nobody knew. I honestly can't remember from the late 70s all the way through the 80s anyone ever using the term classic rock. I didn't really start encountering that term to refer to all the tracks that I've just listed there. I don't remember anybody using that term until, it was well into the 90s. I started seeing it on band posters on the local gig circuit, all the best in blues and classic rock, and things like that. That's where I first remember hearing it. So it's just interesting to wonder when it changes. I don't know what the point of this video is, really. It's just sort of a retrospective look back and a little bit of a late middle-aged chap's befuddlement at how the world has moved on, and call it Old Man Shouts at Cloud if you want. I'm quite happy with that designation. I suppose the point is, as the opening line of L.P. Hartley's novel The Go-Between says, the past is another country. They do things differently there. And with that, I'll wrap it up there for today. Just a little, as I say, nostalgic piece, bit of whimsy, and Old Man Shouts at Cloud. But I haven't done any shouting really. I'm just kind of, I find it more amusing than annoying. But it's not annoying at all. It's just, it's one of those things that when the policemen start looking younger, you know that you're getting old, and when your idea, your definition of what musical genres are that you grew up listening to have changed without you kind of getting the memo. I didn't get the I wasn't invited to that meeting. When all of that changes, then you know that the world has moved on, as it always does. But that's it for today, folks. Just a little bit of nostalgic whimsy. Hope I generated some or triggered some fond memories for you there. Did you have this album? Is that Photoshop of an album I remember fondly? Does that spring any memories in your dim and distant past? If so, let me know. And if you have a copy of it, maybe we could come to some arrangement. But that's it for today, folks. Hope you've enjoyed the video. And if that's the case, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And why not drop me a like as well while you're at it. Don't forget the live stream every Friday, 5 PM UK time, where we have a beer and a chat. Basically, that's all it is. It's a great way to kick off the weekend, though, and I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.